What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Ask Alex, where this is a show where we take your questions and answer them here on this show. I'm your host, Alex Hampton, and today we have a very challenging show for you guys today because I'm not gonna lie to you. A lot of these topics I kind of feel very indifferent about, but I couldn't do this by myself. I have my co-host Jeremy Branch with me. Jeremy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing real good, and I'm glad to hear that I'm kind of on the other side of the coin with the questions. I thought these were some stuff that I'm, I guess, passionate about, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and Ian couldn't be with us today, but he'll definitely be on the next episode. But we want to congratulate him for getting over 3,000 subscribers. That is amazing. He got that this past week, so we congratulate you, brother, and we are so excited for the content that you're putting out. And if you guys are new to the show, and if you want your question or topic on the show, all you guys have to do is just send me an email at theaskalexshow@gmail.com. That's the AskAlexShow@gmail.com. If you leave your topic or question in that email, we'll be more than happy to answer it for you guys. More than likely, we're going to be in quarantine for the rest of our lives, so just send us topics, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. And let's go ahead and jump into the first question of the day. And the first question comes from a Keith Wright, and he writes, "Hey Alex, so with Mulan going to Disney Plus next month, is there any chance that Black Widow and other blockbuster movies are coming to Disney Plus? I never thought we would see Mulan on Disney Plus, but as the world keeps changing, would it be far-fetched to think that Black Widow would be coming to Disney Plus?" Well, thank you for your question, Keith. So what Keith's really referring to this past week, Bob Chapek, who's the new CEO of Disney, said that Mulan is going to be coming to Disney Plus, and it's going to be a little premium thing. You have to pay $30 for it in order for you to watch it, and once you pay for it, it'll be on your Disney Plus service. And that movie was slated to come out obviously this year, but given the fact of what's going on, there are no theaters open. So they have to, improvise and, do what they can to get these movies that they have shot and finished production on into some form of either a theater or a service. Now, I will like to point out that movie is still being shown in other theaters across the world. It's very limited, but they are still going to put that movie in theaters where there are theaters that are open. Obviously, they're not dealing with the situation that we're dealing with right here in our own United States. So the answer to your question, though, will Black Widow and other blockbusters that Disney owns come to Disney Plus? And I have to be honest with you, I see it two ways. This is why I said today's show I feel a little bit indifferent. I see it two ways. Either Black Widow gets delayed indefinitely if things tend to get worse, which right now everything's changing, so you don't know if things are going to get worse or better. So I see it getting delayed indefinitely solely because that's a blockbuster movie. And I said to myself today, I said, I haven't watched the trailer of that movie in a while. Let me rewatch it. And after rewatching it, I was really excited just to see Black Widow face off against Taskmaster. That's something I want to see in the theaters. I mean, I have a flat screen TV at my house, but there's nothing like that communal theater experience for a blockbuster movie like that versus watching it at home. Like, watching Endgame at home is very different than when I watched it for the first time in the theater, where everybody's cheering and crying and a whole lot of cool stuff. So I feel like with a Deadpool movie like that, it may get delayed indefinitely because Bob Chapek did say in that press release that for right now, Mulan is the only movie that's going to be put onto Disney Plus for right now. I also do feel like if things get worse, which, especially in the state of Florida, which looks like that's what's going to, happen. And I want to keep you guys in mind that the state of Florida is a big market for the movie theaters, just like California, just like New York, all these other different places. If things tend to get worse, which it seems like it could potentially happen, I really see Bob saying, okay, if we put Black Widow on Disney Plus, it's probably going to be $50. $50 per person. And I'm not gonna lie, I heard someone tell me on Facebook, well, $30 is the same amount of money you would spend for two people, which is kind of true. Like, depending on what theater you go to, like I know the Disney theater that me and my wife go to, one ticket by itself is like $13. She'll spend $13, and then we'll spend like popcorn and drinks and all the other good stuff. So I think if they do put Disney Black Widow on Disney Plus, it would probably be more than $30, given the fact it is a tentpole movie, and majority of their movies, not all, make about $1 billion. So honestly, I think the only way that would happen if things get worse, which it could potentially happen. But Jeremy, you heard this news of Mulan going to Disney Plus. Were you surprised about that? And do you think, given the situation, that it's not far-fetched to think that Black Widow would be on Disney Plus?
Yeah, I think the person who asked the question brings up some very valid points. I think that it would seem unprecedented, and then they did it. Like, I did not expect Disney to pull the trigger and put Mulan out ahead of time. Because while, maybe, and I think this is fair to say, maybe Black Widow is tailored more towards yourself and I. Mulan, I feel, has every bit the earning potential. I mean, you look at the way the rest of these live action adaptations have gone, and they're all very, very bankable. I think they said $30 a household, which, Alex, you kind of nailed it. It's like, for me, that's an outrageous amount of money.
Right.
For me in Victoria, it already starts to be a little more manageable. You throw two kids into the mix, and all of a sudden you're saving money now.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I can't tell you what they're going to do with Black Widow until I see what they do with Mulan, and I would almost bet that they're in the same situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like it would be financial suicide, but also you have to keep in mind, and I heard Robert Meyer Burnett say this, that Disney had their earnings call about literally last week, and Disney has lost billions of dollars since their reopening and the closing. So my thing is that if I'm Disney, I gotta do what I can to keep the company afloat to whatever that degree is. If I'm losing billions of dollars, in my mind, people are fired, people are laid off, there's stuff being on the back burner. I just, and then also when you put stuff in theaters, that's where majority of their movie money is being made. Streaming, there's a reason why Netflix puts out these Netflix originals, and after maybe 1 or 2 seasons, they're canceled because they don't make any money, and they're not all that great. So that's where I kind of.
But there is something to be said, and I think you bring up an interesting point. And the other side to that may potentially be they don't have to pay theaters to show their movies, right? Or is it the? I'm not real clear on the way this works, Alex. For the movie.
Well, for instance, the theaters only get, I believe, 1/8 of their ticket sales. So all theaters make money from the their popcorn and all the other stuff. That's where the bulk of their money comes from. But since every studio is in alignment with every theater chain, every major theater chain, they have to let them know when they're putting out a theater and I'm putting out a movie and how much and how long it's going to be and how many screens it can take up. So I do believe they have an agreement in place with that's why in that same report Disney was like, well, we spoke to NATO, the National Theater Organization, and said, hey, we're going to remove this movie from theaters and put it on our streaming service. Is it okay that we do this? Because they have an agreement. Because if they went off and did it, they would be in the same situation as Universal, where, so
Well, that's interesting. For the people who are watching that might not know, run me through the details of that real quick. What were the bullet points of that whole thing with Universal?
So basically Universal decided to put out Trolls 2 straight to on demand without letting the theaters, the expedition, know. Now, legally, they have the right to put out any form of movie into whatever demand service that they have. but they have an agreement with every theater chain, whether it's Regal, Cinemark, AMC, Carmike, all that good stuff. They have an agreement to say, hey, before you put out a movie into on demand, you have to let us know if you're going to be pulling it from our expedition or not. They did not let the theater owners know. So that's why the theaters are like, well, Universal, we're not going to stop doing business with you, but Fast 9 is coming out. We're going to say, well, you can only have Fast 9 on 100 screens rather than 2,000.
Right.
Right. So that's, you don't want to screw over your theaters because majority of your money comes from them. That's why when they say, oh, well, it's either streaming or theaters, and any regular company will tell you streaming doesn't make that much money. That's the reason why Peacock is free for the most part.
Once they put the a la carte on top of it, because you're right, like if you get 5 movies on Netflix that are original movies and you're paying for your subscription, or you get 500 new movies, you're still paying the same subscription price. It's not like they're divvying out the money. I don't know how all of that works.
Right.
What I'm thinking kind of is, if the studio doesn't have to pay the overhead for having their films shipped off to movie theaters, screened in movie theaters or whatever, maybe it would come out in the wash. Like if they make $3 less per the screening than they would otherwise, but they don't have to give the theaters a cut, perhaps that would get it to where it's a little more profitable. But yeah, this is so like, we don't have anything else to compare it to. So it's really difficult to say. And I guess that's where the indecision or the indecisiveness comes from, is like, we're all just kind of in limbo. Like right now, we're all just kind of sitting back like, I don't know. I guess we got to just kind of see how it plays out. And I imagine Disney's in the same situation. I imagine they're looking at Mulan and they're looking at Mulan and they're saying, if we can put this out and it hits X amount of dollars, then we will move ahead and do the same with Black Widow. I agree with everything you said, Alex. It is so much more of a fulfilling experience when you're in theaters watching it with a crowd of people. But we're going to need entertainment. Disney's going to need to continue to up their subscriptions because, as you said, the parks have taken a huge hit with attendance. I mean, you're down in the Orlando area. Yeah. They're just taking a hit from every different direction. And yes, I also think it's worth mentioning that the theaters don't want to mess up the relationship with Disney. That is their biggest source of income, and Disney's even flexed on the theater chains from time to time about wanting a bigger cut. So I imagine the theaters will have a lot more concessions that they would with Disney. Like, they'll let a lot more stuff slide with Disney than they will Universal, just out of virtue of the fact that Disney owns every other studio out there now.
Like, the one thing I've heard from theater, one of the theater owners here I'm actually friends with, and he said the one thing that we don't want to mess with studios, he said there's 2 studios we do not mess with in terms of their movies are Warner Brothers and Disney. And there's a reason for that, because they own almost everything. Like, majority of the media that we watch today is owned by either Disney and Warner Brothers. So yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised if it became on Disney Plus, because like me and Jeremy said, I never thought Mulan was going to be on Disney Plus. The way they marketed that movie too, they made it seem like it was going to be really dope, especially in China. Yeah, I remember when the article was shared, I was just like shocked. Like, first of all, who would pay $30 for this? And second of all, like, now that I think about it, okay, if I take my wife, my daughter, yeah, that's about the same price. I'm actually saving money if I take my daughter. So I'm like, so yeah, I get it. But, what do you guys think? Do you think that, Black Widow would be on Disney Plus? Do you guys think that, them moving to this new format is crazy or a smart move? Just jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And let's go ahead and jump into the next question. And the next question comes from a Greg Harris. And he writes, "Hey Alex, Robert Pattinson, other actors are going to be at the DC Fandom online convention this year. Do you think we will get footage of the new Batman movie at the DC Fandom convention?"
That's your boy, Robert
Pattinson. I know you're excited about this.
Well, I mean, well, first, thank you for your question, Greg. I'll say this. I have said on my show that I was not a fan of the suit. I was not necessarily a fan of him being cast as Batman, but as we got to see different things coming out about this project, I did get excited about it because Batman's one of my favorite DC characters. My thing is that if they're going to DC Fandom to show us some footage, what could they show us? Because the reports that I'm reading, they've only shot a few scenes. Like, they were only on set before COVID for about 30 days. So in that 30 days, how much footage did they cover? And I could be wrong. It could be more than 30 days, but how much footage did they get? And also, how much of that is already color corrected and mixed together? Like, how much of it is it? And then there's so many unanswered questions about that movie in particular, like, what year is it taking place after? Is it a current movie in the DCEU? Is it a separate universe? Like, we don't know what they're doing with that. So I will say I'm a fan of Matt Reeves. So I'm interested to see that. Also want to keep in mind in that same report that Greg's referring to, like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's going to be there, showing like Black Adam stuff. Some of the other DCEU characters are going to be there. Zack Snyder is supposed to be debuting his teaser trailer of the Snyder Cut. So there's a lot of other DC stuff coming to that. Also, we're possibly going to get our first look at Titan Season 3. So there are some things that I'm interested in that. But as far as the whole Robert Pattinson thing, I'm like I said, I'm mixed in it. I want to see it because I'm interested, but at the same time, right now there isn't anything right now that's got me super excited for it, given the circumstances. But I will say this though, before I pass it to Jeremy, this is the first time I've gone to a con online, so I'm kind of wondering how that's gonna be like. But Jeremy, you heard this news that Robert Pattinson's gonna be at DC Fandom. What do you think about him being there? And are you excited about any new footage from the Batman?
So what does it look like? It's like a seminar without an audience? Or are they doing like Zoom panels? Like, do you know what the format's going to be?
So from what I read is that they have the website ready. I believe it's called dcfandom.com or something of that nature. You click in and you're basically watching the presentation as they're live streaming it. And I heard what I read from Variety is that the actors will be there, but obviously there'll be some social distancing from each one of them. So I don't think it's going to be like Zoom per se. It's going to be more like how we would live stream like the E3 events, right? Something like that. Yeah.
And that to me lends itself a bit more to being able to showcase some extravagant stuff. Like if they were gonna show footage from a movie, the Zoom conference thing wouldn't be conducive to that. But if they're trying to build an atmosphere and make it still feel like an event, just we're watching it remotely, I think that would be a way to generate excitement for this thing. I don't know. I think there was just now, and I've not really been in the loop as much as I should have lately, but there was a convention a couple weeks ago online.
Oh, yeah. The Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con online, yeah.
San Diego Comic-Con online, and the main showcases, like the biggest Hall H panels, only getting like tens of thousands of views on YouTube. So there's something going on in the culture right now where I don't know if it's just that there's so many like dire things going on in the world that it seems that maybe interest in pop culture has waned a little bit. And I hate to think of that because I know how important it is to me and to you, but it feels like right now it's hard to get people as excited about that stuff. Like our whole life has been online for the last couple of months. We've seen every television show, talk show, every podcast we've done. All of it's been over Zoom. So I think we're all kind of like, we need something other than looking through these windows. All that said, I'm excited about the Batman. I like the cast. I like the director. I think Matt Reeves is very talented, and I think the casting is it's interesting. It's not what I was expecting, and I'm all for that. Like I like to be surprised, especially by a Batman movie, because it's something that we all are so familiar with at this point. It's like Spider-Man. So I'm cool to see a different take on the character. I like the fact that they've cast this guy who has spent the majority of his career trying to get away from being a vampire, is now taken on arguably the biggest role, probably top 5 biggest roles you could possibly be cast as.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned the 30-day production schedule. On a blockbuster, you're typically looking at about 60 to 90 days, somewhere in there is like, I think the sweet spot, maybe give or take a little, depending on, the size and the budget and all of that. So in 30 days, you could do a bit, but in addition to that, with freaking deep fake technology and CGI and seeing Zack Snyder give us a totally different version of Steppenwolf and putting out this Snyder cut, like, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave us a 90% CGI trailer and just passed it off like it was going to be footage and then went in and recreated it afterwards. Like, technology is so profoundly deceptive these days that they could show us anything,
Yeah, because like when I look at like he's so right. Like, look at the Snyder cut. Most of the clips that we've seen are recycled clips that he just pulled and retouched up, and you would have never known that unless unless someone told you. And I was like, wow. So he's right. Like, you can do, like, even as a filmmaker myself, you can take recycled footage and literally make it look like a actual trailer. There's fan made trailers of Robert Pattinson's Batman now on YouTube, and if you didn't know, you would think that they were real. Like,
I've seen some of those before, man.
And they look really cool for the most part. So I was just like, okay, but I'm excited to see what they're gonna do. Like Jeremy said, like, there's so much you can do with so many films and just CGI and all the other good stuff. So I am interested to see that. But what do you guys think? Do you think that we'll see anything cool from the panel? Do you think that we'll be able to see Robert Pattinson in that Batman suit? Just jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And guys, I got a very interesting question. And this is one where I felt indifferent about as well. And this question comes from a Selena Carter. And she writes, "Hey Alex, and I might be pronouncing this director's name wrong, so bear with me. Hey Alex, so Nia DaCosta will be directing Captain Marvel 2. Do you think this is a good director to take on this franchise?" Well, thank you for your question, Selena. So before I jump into whether she's good or not, I want to point out she's the new Candyman director. And that Candyman trailer looks amazing. Like, and I'm not a huge horror fan, dude. But, man, I was like, yo, I want to see this movie. This movie looks better than, Get Out. And this is someone who's worked with Jordan Peele. And, she has a very communal horror background. And I personally think that horror directors who transition to superhero franchises, they tend to make a really good transition, like Scott Derrickson, Sam Raimi. So I think that, she making that transition would be good for her on a creative side. With that being said, I have not seen any of her work, so I don't know. I don't know, but the underlying factor about that is that I trust Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige does not put people in places that he doesn't think that can do the job. Now, I will say this. I wasn't a fan of Captain Marvel. It was okay. I didn't think it was like a piece of crap like everybody made it seem like it was. I thought it was okay for the most part, but it's not a movie that I'm super excited about to go run to. I will say I do like the fact that with this casting decision, it's going to be you could say it could be a little bit more diverse. Given the fact that it's going to be a black woman working on a white project. So I think that's dope. But to judge whether if this is a good choice or not, I think it's a good choice solely because of what Kevin Feige sees in this young woman. But again, I have not seen her work, so I can't judge her for her work. And I looked at her filmography. She's put out some films, that are good and average at best. But I haven't seen those films, so again, I can't judge her. So, Jeremy, you heard this news as well. Have you seen this director's work? And if you have, what do you think about her taking on this franchise of directing Captain Marvel 2?
I agree with almost everything that you said. The trailers for the new Candyman look exceptional. The original Candyman is one of my favorite films. I mean, and not take horror out of it, it's absolutely one of my favorite movies. I got a Tony Todd signed picture over on my wall right there. That movie is incredibly iconic, and I've always been a big fan of it. Mm-hmm. Nia DaCosta directed a film called Little Woods, and it had Lily James and Tessa Thompson in it, mm-hmm. two actresses that I really enjoy. Also, I think, I don't know, it came out a couple of years ago, but apparently it's like a dark Western movie, so mm-hmm. it sounds like she's got varied interests. I also, like you just now said about it being a diverse hire, I love that they're mixing it up like that. I love that they've brought in this young female African-American director mm-hmm. to make a movie that wasn't Black Panther or mm-hmm. Black Panther 2 and not that she wouldn't be wonderful for those as well. It's just, I just really like to see the cross-pollination. I think that's interesting. And she can bring a distinct female perspective to the character. Captain Marvel is probably my least favorite MCU film.
Right.
Doesn't make it a bad movie. It's just probably my least favorite of a bunch of movies that I've, vary from it's all right to I love this movie, and mm-hmm. Captain Marvel's in the it's all right camp.
Right.
It's definitely not something I harbor any ill feelings for, but I think it can only be improved upon mm-hmm. after the first film, which is great. It's a great situation for a director to be in, where they're like, we have this marketable IP. The first movie was incredibly successful, but it wasn't necessarily beloved by audiences and critics, because so many times when the first film is Jaws, the second film's got to be Jaws too. But this is a different situation where they could actually improve upon it and make the sequel be better than the original film.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Like, I am definitely rooting for her. I feel like what you said about Kevin Feige's eye for talent, what you said about her working with Jordan Peele, like, she has got the cosign from some of the most influential and specific filmmakers that are out there. And I all of this says good things to me about, her potential to do something good. I also feel like your point about filmmakers transitioning over from horror, I've always said that horror is the proving grounds for filmmakers. And the reason why I say this is because they're cheap to make. You don't need a lot of actors. You don't need any fancy locations. A lot of times it's a cabin in the woods. Now, why would everything take place in a cabin in the woods? Well, because it doesn't cost anybody anything. You get 4 or 5 actors out there to die slowly, and the whole thing is it's almost like a technical exercise. Can the filmmaker create suspense and tension? Can they build atmosphere? Do they know how to frame and block and write a compelling enough story to showcase their ability to create tension? I think that's really the thing that horror is all about, is like holding that beat, and the sound drops out, and then all of a sudden, bam, and it's like, it's kind of cheap. But if you can emulate that feeling, then all of a sudden you're learning the magic that is filmmaking. And for those of you that don't know what the magic of filmmaking is, it's deception. It's the art of deception, or the sleight of hand, right? It really is all about manipulating you. And if it is scaring you or making you laugh or making you cry or grossing you out, all of that means it's doing its job. And I feel like horror is probably the best place for that. And if you look at the filmographies of many, many, many talented directors, a lot of them did cut their teeth on horror because they were able to secure, $500,000 to make their pet project, and then they get out there and they get it done, and they usually move on to really big things. So I'm excited to see it. I'm actually going to check out Little Woods probably tonight, just to kind of get an idea about who Nia DaCosta is.
Yeah, and I'm going to check out some of her other filmography as well, because I just want to get an idea of what her style is like. And I 100% agree with Jeremy. Any director that can work on any horror film, because like, look at Paranormal Activity. I think the first one's budget was like $15,000. I mean, it's literally like for me, I would want that type of budget for a short film, but for a feature film, man, like you really have to. It forces people to be creative, and that's how you can draw the line between people who make blockbusters in comparison to people who, if you give them a budget and say, okay, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it to the best of my ability. The one thing that comes to mind is also Deadpool. Deadpool had a $58 million budget, and that movie could have been, 100 million, 150 million, but
Absolutely.
that $58 million budget forced the director and the creatives of that whole team to be really creative, and they told an amazing story, even to the point where Deadpool was like talking to the audience, is like, oh, I don't have enough money to do this, so we're gonna do this. Yeah. Like, it's like that's how fun it makes the theater experience, at least for me, because like
how to utilize a budget as well, like you were saying.
Yeah, because like even with like, I look at, it's funny, John Wick got greenlighted for 2 movies. The most money that they ever spent on that franchise is like $50 to $60 million, but it keeps making like hundreds of $millions at the box office. If I can make a Batman movie for $50 million, that's a steal for DC. Just like how Joker was, like, I believe, a $50 million movie and made $1 billion.
That's a good point, man. 100%.
Yeah, so like I think like Jeremy's right. If most horror directors work with a small budget, and they make the most amazing films. So when you give them a movie where they can play with a lot of money, I can't wait to see what they can do creatively with that. So I'm actually kind of interested in seeing that. Like I said, later tonight or probably throughout the rest of this week, I'm going to check out some of her filmography. But I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is a good pick? Do you think that Captain Marvel 2 would be a great installment for the MCU? Just jump to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Ask Alex. Please like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel where you get all the updates the very time I'm releasing a video here on my YouTube channel. Jeremy, where can we find you on social media?
I got to get better at the plug section. I always am so dismissive about it because I get embarrassed. But you can check me out at Movies Are Terrible on YouTube. Check out the Holden Hardman series, My Friend Watches. I make a couple appearances in that. And if you want to talk on social media, all you got to do is look up Jeremy B. Terrible on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll find me over there.
Awesome. And you know where to find us, guys, here at Momentum Media. I will also link links in the description below of Jeremy's and Ian's social media where you can connect with them. They make great content as well, so just look them up. And also, My Friend Watch series is actually really cool as well, so definitely go check that out on Holden's channel as well. So thank you guys again so much for watching our videos. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, you have a blessed day.